A man named Maji had a family and an unpleasant job. He also has a wife named Mamta. But his relationship with his wife is uncommon. They don't have free time to spend quality time alone. Even after marriage, Maji never touched his wife's hand. In old times, his family owned a sewing business. But their business went bankrupt. Because of that, Maji and his family have to live in a shabby house. In the morning, Maji always uses his old bicycle to work. But not with his brother named Jignu. He married a rich woman and lived a prosperous life. Meanwhile, Maji works in a shop that sells sewing tools. But his boss always underestimates him. One day, Maji and his family are invited to the wedding of his boss's son. But his wife didn't want to go to the party because her dress was too loose. Hearing this, Maji, who is very skilled at sewing, took the initiative to make his wife's clothes. While at the wedding, Maji and his family are looked down upon by Maji's boss's family. This can be seen when they want to take a photo with Maji's boss family, but they are refused. They told Maji to work. Even Maji had to serve invited guests, and he was also told to become a dog to make the guests laugh.
Hello बोलो भाभी को भूख लगी है चिकन ये ले आ गया चिकन आ गया अरे रोटी है चिकन नहीं रोटी है
Seeing this made Mamta and Maji's family very sad, because it hurt their hearts. When they got home, Mamta told Maji that she wanted her husband to stop working and start the business again with his sewing talent. But Maji refuses for fear that he will go bankrupt. The next day, Maji is again mocked by his boss at work. Because of his outrageous attitude, Maji couldn't contain his emotions and made a fuss. This made him decide to quit his job. Then Maji returned to his house and told his family that he had quit his job. Hearing this, Mamta was very happy. But not with his family, because his father had just retired and their economic condition was getting tougher. While preparing food, Maji's mother falls in the kitchen due to a heart attack. She had to be rushed to the hospital. Arriving at the hospital, the doctor said that she needed immediate surgery for a ring on her heart and they had to pay the initial bill first. Hearing this, Maji tried to find money to pay his bills. Then, Mamta, who is a smart girl, provides a solution for Maji to open his business on the side of the road, so that it does not incur any fees. Later, Maji followed his wife's advice. He started sewing on the side of the road. On his first day of work, Mamta secretly brought lunch for her husband. Maji invites Mamta to have a meal together. This moved Mamta to tears, and it was the first time she had eaten with her husband. Then Maji gets news that his mother has fallen again. He immediately met his mother in the hospital. When he arrived at the hospital, his mother told Maji to return to his old job. But Mamta denied and continued to support her husband to open his own business. Not only his mother, but his brother also sent Maji to work in a factory outside the city. But he also refused because he did not want to leave his parents. After seeing the mother struggling to wear a sari in the hospital, Mamta and her husband made warm clothes for their mother who was going to be operated on. Previously, his mother used patchwork. Then they named the clothes a maxi dress. When his mother wore it in the hospital, it seemed that many people wanted to order the maxi dress with an upfront payment. This makes them excited to work on it for 2 days. With great enthusiasm, Maji and Mamta started their business. Mamta also always supports and accompanies her husband. But when they are about to start their business, obstacles begin to approach them. The sewing machine they used was even rented to a neighbor by Maji's father. Seeing it, Maji tried to take it back. But his efforts were fruitless. Since Maji did not have a sewing machine, he went to one of his friends to rent a sewing machine. But his friend gave advice to Maji. If he wanted to get a free sewing machine, he had to take a test and cover 40 miles. Without thinking, Maji took his wife along with his old bicycle to visit the place to get a free sewing machine. On the way, Maji had an accident and injured his leg. But with that enthusiasm, Maji didn't give up and kept on pedaling. Arriving there, Mamta ordered Maji to treat his wound by visiting a clinic. While Mamta waits in line to be able to take the test, Maji, who saw the very long queue at the clinic, made him impatient and wanted to treat his own wound. But the clinic refuses and tells Maji to stay in line. Hearing this, Maji didn't accept it and made a fuss because he had to quickly treat his wound and had to take a test. Mamta is also confused. She had to enter the test room and do it, even though she had no talent for sewing. Time keeps running. Mamta feels very sad as she thinks that she will destroy her husband. But not long after, Maji came to the test room and met Mamta. Then, they immediately did the test, which was to make pillowcases. Mamta also helps pedal the sewing machine. Time is running out. They managed to make a pillowcase and brought the sewing machine home.
ये लीजिए कूपन, मशीन ले लो वहाँ से।
अब रोने मत लगना, ये बोल के कि आज से
मशीन ले लीजिए वहाँ से।
Then, when they got home, they had to finish all the maxi dress orders in one night. Later, the proceeds from the order they used to pay their mother's hospital bills. Because it was still lacking, his family asked for help from his brother-in-law named Gudu. After that, Gudu met with the hospital and managed to negotiate with Maji because he had made a maxi dress that made it easier for doctors to examine patients. Maji's creations will be supplied by the hospital through the factory where Gudu works, which is called Prediction. The next day, Maji came to the Prediction factory with samples of maxi dress and got an order of 2,000 pieces in 3 days, for a very reasonable fee. But Mamta senses something wrong with Gudu. Because the economic conditions became increasingly difficult, they decided to continue working in the factory. The next day, Mamta and Maji get to work. Innocently, they brought a sewing machine. But the factory did not need the sewing machine. So the machine was stored in the factory warehouse. They did not accept having to work in the factory. The clothes they created themselves, but using other labels. They even paid a low price. This made Maji angry and decided to quit the factory. In the evening, Gudu comes to Maji's house to hold him accountable for his actions at the factory. But he was only silent when he saw Jugnu, who continued to be humiliated by his wife. Maji does not accept his brother-in-law's behavior. Unfortunately, he gets a slap from Shankar instead. This makes everyone become silent and do not have the enthusiasm to carry out activities as usual. Seeing this makes Mamta ask Maji to apologize to Gudu so that everything gets better. But Maji refused and was very angry because he kept following his wife's advice and he felt that his wife never understood him. Then Maji told Mamta to do something to make her condition better, like trying to get her sewing machine back. After that, Mamta went to the factory and asked for the sewing machine to be returned. But they put a condition and he had to wait all day. But unfortunately, he had been lied to and failed to get the sewing machine. While Maji is panicking and looking for Mamta, he finds Mamta in the terminal very beaten. Feeling very resentful and wanting to maintain his pride, Mamta orders Maji to compete with Prediction Factory in a fashion competition using their own name. Then, with all his grudges, Maji agrees with Mamta, because he doesn't want to fall into a slump. But on condition, they do it secretly without telling their family. Their business started. They thought of a fashion brand to feature in the competition and went to their neighbors to borrow a sewing machine for a cup of cardamom tea each morning. Selection day has arrived. He starts to introduce the clothes he made with his own hands. But the judges only fund the famous designers. Hearing this, Mamta convinced the jury that she could produce a more interesting collection. With the help of the artists and craftsmen who become manual laborers in their environment, they managed to convince the jury. Later, the older brother went to Maji to offer him a job outside the city by falsifying his diploma. But with his stance, Maji refused and told his brother to do it himself and leave his family to get a happy life. And for the first time, Maji felt that he was going to pursue his dream, which his father always underestimated. Even so, Maji still asked for support from his parents. But on the condition, if it doesn't work, Maji will take the job suggested by his father. Then his father agreed to it and gave him a month's time. The next day, Mamta and Maji started to invite people around them to create a collection of clothes. Because he saw Maji's persistence, then his father melted and fully supported Maji. The day of the fashion funding competition has arrived. Everyone follows and displays the fashion they make. At first, they were skeptical about his appearance. But they still believe in themselves. And as a result of his relentless efforts, everyone seemed to be blown away by the collections made by Maji. However, due to their lack of experience in the fashion world, their chances of winning are very small. Because of this, Maji immediately despaired and decided to return to his city. But some of his friends refused and wanted to follow the event to completion. While waiting for the bus, Maji was called by one of his friends. He invites Maji to come back. Then he heard that his clothes were declared the winner. Maji gets funding for his business. They manage to beat Prediction and get a decent life, and manage to become famous designers in the international arena.